Good evening, everybody. How are you this evening? If you'll notice here, Bev's not here. I don't know what happened to her, and I'm not even sure if this is going live here. It looks like it is. If you're with us, let us know. Give us a little heads up. Say, yeah, we're here. And so we just have Amy Glogg with us. You can look at the camera here, Amy, because you're on live now. So, hi, Amy. How are you?
Great. How are you doing tonight?
Well, sort of doing good. I wonder what happened to Bev though. She's out in the ozone. I tried calling her and tried
Yeah,
texting her. Yeah, so it's you and
I'm sure
I.
she'll be around soon.
Well,
Yeah, I
I
was just trying to see if it was live on Facebook. It hasn't popped up on my computer, so that's what I was looking at. So I just wanted to
well we
see
got
there.
somebody. Somebody's on there.
Excellent.
So we're
Great.
going live and to this evening. If you're here with us and you're a massage therapist, let us know if you're trying to get your CE credits. If you are interested in sticking around after Amy gives us her little spiel, go to justtouch.com/workbook. And after Amy gives her little presentation, then we'll teach you the points that work with BioTouch on how to work with eating disorders. So, Amy, we are thrilled to have you. I know you have quite a story about your own personal journey with eating disorders. So, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you have the screen. So, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Amy. I'm an integrative wellness coach based out of Tucson, Arizona. I do most of my work virtually, but I do occasionally offer services at the BioTouch Center in Tucson. And tonight I'm going to be speaking a little about eating disorders. Most of the information I'll be providing to you is going to be from the National Institute of Mental Health, and that's just like the basics of it. And then I'll be sharing some of my own personal experiences. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and started with eating disorder behavior in my very young teens. And so I have worked with this with for a long time in myself, and then I spent time as a caregiver for teens with mental health issues. And now I work with clients and help people manage the diet and lifestyle factors and manage triggers. So, first, we'll talk a little bit about eating disorders. There are several types and subtypes of eating disorders, but we'll focus on the basics. So, the first one would be anorexia nervosa. And that one is classified by people who avoid food altogether, who severely restrict food, or eat really small quantities of food. And that was the first signs for myself. That's what my parents noticed in me when I was a teenager. I wasn't eating and I was pretending to eat and just kind of pushing my food around the plate, kind of thing. So my parents noticed those symptoms really early and they tried to take control and get me eating and going. So things you can look for people who, the classic signs are restricted eating, excessive exercise, extreme thinness, intense fear about gaining weight, distorted body image. And then there's medical symptoms that can arise because of these things. So if you notice someone in your life who has these things, I think it is important to get them to a doctor and see what they recommend. For me, they had me on a lot of medications. I tried everything along the way. I've been on almost every depression medication and most of the pretty extreme anxiety medications too. And so nowadays, I personally don't choose to do any medications other than plant medicine. And that is the only types of medications that I use currently. But I think there is a valid case for a lot of the medications out there, and that, each person should work with their doctor to find what is best for them. So the next one that we'll focus on is bulimia. And bulimia is one that is typically a binge and purge, but there are some people who only purge, they don't binge. And so there are different things with that. You can kind of watch for signs of like constantly inflamed throat, swollen salivary glands, and intestinal order disorders, acid reflux, and severe dehydration. Electrolyte imbalance can occur because of that as well. Then there is binge eating disorder, which is another one that I have dealt with. And that one is probably the one that I have seen several clients for. I shouldn't say the most because I have several clients who are anorexic as well. But binge eating disorder is definitely more popular. We hear a lot about stress eating, and people are triggered to eat sweets or salty foods when they're hungry, and so that one is one that is a little bit more common, or one that we hear about more often than anorexia or bulimia. A lot of times anorexia and bulimia people believe are more with younger people, which I don't believe is true. I work with a lot of clients who are old, who are not teenagers and who have that situation. So with binge eating disorders, people usually eat large amounts of food in like a small period of time. They eat really fast. They like to eat alone or in secret sometimes so that people don't see it because they're embarrassed by it. And they may have a lot of guilt and shame about eating. And when they're talking about eating, it tends to be with a lot of guilt and shame in regards to food. So, in classic medical situations, eating disorders are treated with medications. Like I said, there's also psychotherapy and talk therapy. They have different support groups. They have actual programs, like you would go to like a treatment center if someone needs that. So there are a lot of options as far as that goes. And then you can kind of go about it in a more holistic approach as like a complement to medicine. And so for me, BioTouch was a really big help. And so I'm excited for the workshop today. I also use EFT tapping, which is really great for releasing like the traumas and fears behind it and helping to get rid of like the repetitive behavior. And I use Reiki as well. And so those are things that I do with my clients. I'm also a certified functional nutrition coach. So we focus on finding triggers and being aware of them before they happen so that we can avoid the episodes happening entirely. But it's a road. Eating disorders are something that most people struggle with their whole lives. It is like addiction. So it's something that, working with your doctor is important. And I think having these complementary modalities can just make the path a lot smoother.
Hmm. So tell us, Amy. I'm showing a picture of you in your past life there, and you in that wonderful dress and that's a more recent photo, I assume.
Yeah.
Tell what was that journey like going from that overweight situation to where you are today?
It's really been quite a journey, a winding road for sure. So I ended up in the wheelchair because I did have osteopenia from my eating disorders, and I broke my fibula, and it came out of my leg, and I had osteoarthritis in my back. I don't know if that was from the eating disorders too, because I think that arthritis can be linked to that. But I developed arthritis at a very young age, and I had it in several joints. And I was on and off a walker because of herniated discs, and then I broke my leg. And my husband and I, we moved across country, and we were looking for a place that had better weather for my health. And when we arrived in Arizona, I met a wonderful woman who was in school for integrated wellness, and she began using me as her case study and worked on me several times a week. And then when we moved away from her, she had shown me some techniques that I could work on myself, and I just intuitively began healing myself. I actually was doing a lot of BioTouch type stuff intuitively, and that's how I came to find BioTouch. I met Michelle Cardenas at a meetup that she showed me BioTouch, and it helped me so much on my journey. I've lost almost 200 pounds now, and I am off all the medications. At one point, I was on close to 20 medications, and some of them severely addictive, and I was definitely abusing them. And I was drinking really heavily when I was in the wheelchair. My depression and anxiety, I mean, I think at one point my goal every day was just not to wake up. And so I am so thankful that I found the things that I use for myself and with my family and my clients. And that I found BioTouch and all the help that it has given me. And so it has been quite a journey. Healing is definitely a process, and it's been about 4 years since the picture in the wheelchair,
Wow.
and actually close to five. Five will be in September.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when you and your husband came to the first class. That was an inspiration for us, because he really wanted to come to support you, and it was something he could do for you, and you for him, and that was inspiring. So did he work with you through this whole period of time too?
He's been working with me the whole time. My husband was my full time caregiver when I was in the wheelchair. I was bedridden for months, and he was my full time caregiver. He's always been there. He's been there through everything, and he's, such a wonderful and kind hearted person. So he took the class with me because I realized that me taking it didn't really help with my health. But, and I was coming to the center like 3 times a week at that point. And so he took the class and he started working on me and I would work on him. And it really, it helped our marriage so much. It
Wow.
brought us so much closer. I don't think I even like realized, I mean, because I always thought we had a good relationship. We've been together 11 years and, I always thought we had a great relationship. And then, it made me so self-aware and it created that same in him, and our love for each other just grew and it changed the way we communicate with one another. It changed everything.
Wow.
And so he and I studied BioTouch together, and then I went on to learn multiple other modalities of healing, and I've trained him in several of those. And we both work on clients now, and he works on me, and I work on him regularly,
Wow.
and it's part of our routine.
And you have a website too. It's called lightofyourlifewellness.com. There's also her QR code. We do have a question here. Uh, what if you're restricting, avoiding because of a fear of food allergies? Do you think that this can turn into an eating disorder?
For me, it did.
Oh, really?
So I discovered early on in my Reiki journey that there were foods that were inflaming my body, and I started researching and researching. And this is something that we talk about in functional nutrition school. We actually look at that because I would say a very large majority of my clients come to me because they've tried everything else, and they're in that position where they're restricting more and more foods because they're looking for answers to their inflammation, and they're looking, at what is food doing. And that, for me, when I recognized that, was my turning point. I did not recognize that I was still struggling with eating disorders. I thought that was in my past. I left behind the binge eating. I wasn't tracking calories. I wasn't obsessively exercising. I was eating only to be my healthiest. But then my teacher actually suggested that, the issue was my fear of food, and it actually, was a true fear. It created a phobia, and the more food I restricted, the more it became almost like an eating disorder. And
Wow.
that is when I started using the EFT tapping specifically to get over my fear of food. And I have a protocol that I use for people who are fearful of food. I had one client who, when she came to me, she was testing positive for almost every single food out of 300 foods. There was at least a low reactivity for every single food. And her functional medicine doctor recommended that she work on her fear of foods.
Hmm.
And she was working with another functional nutritionist, and she originally came to me thinking like maybe I would have more ideas. And I quickly realized that she was already doing what needed to be done functionally, as far as nutrition, but that we needed to work on that fear of food. And so we began working on meditation and tapping and Reiki, and really helping her. I think I did distance biotouch on her quite a bit. I can't remember if I taught her any points to work on herself. I do that now. But after, I want to say 6 months, she was actually able to return to an almost normal diet. So she had been on like 10 or, I mean, really small opportunities of food. Like she was just eating the food she least reacted to. So I think it definitely can be a situation where it becomes an eating disorder. And it is one of the first things I think about when someone comes to me with all these things, because I realize that they probably are, coming to me because I have the experience with it.
You certainly had the experience, that's for sure. So we had another question in relation to that. You're answering a lot of these questions. When do you cross the line from yo-yo dieting to an eating disorder?
That's a really good question. So, my dad started me on dieting very young. My parents were always overweight. Our life was Weight Watchers, Atkins, walking at the mall in the morning every summer. And I've I was overweight since I was 3.
Wow.
So I had a fall off my dad's shoulders as a baby, and after that, and after a car accident we were hit by a drunk driver. I just started gaining weight. I was always, I mean, I was wearing women's plus size clothing before I was a teenager, and so my parents started me dieting because they were trying to keep me healthy, but it created obsessions for me because I wasn't losing the weight. My dad and I would have competitions with food, like who was losing more weight to try and motivate each other. And he's losing weight like crazy, and I'm not. So the more I did, the worse it got. And I never, I mean, the whole life I never got below 200 pounds except once, before now. And so, well, twice before now, and only briefly. So it was something that was a constant thing. So I think the yo-yo dieting, it's really about the mindset. It's really about how much guilt you have, how much, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really say exactly where it crosses the line. I think that would be up for a doctor to do. But I think if you feel like there's a problem, then maybe it's time to look for some options.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, I've been around since your most recent journey, and you're so inspiring to me. I'm really grateful that you've just allowed yourself to be so loved and trust in that your body is just representing that now, and you're just an inspiration, I think, for a lot of folks out there who are stuck in this loop, this eating disorder loop. So
Well, and eating disorder and autoimmune disease, it's a loop. It's like just trying to find that balance. And I don't know that that ever really, like, it's all about knowing your triggers, knowing how to mediate them, because life is all ebbs and flows. And there's triggers for everything. And if we're aware of those triggers ahead of time, we can really make a difference in how we respond to them, and in responding rather than reacting.
right. So I don't know if there's any other questions. I mean, this has been totally inspirational. I mean, and again, just I love the picture and the journey of you. Again, her website, lightofyourlifewellness.com. And you can see up there she's got a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Amy's here to help you. And she does a lot of different kinds of techniques and includes BioTouch with it. And we just are grateful that she was here to share this with us. And we're going to teach some points. And if you can stick around at least to hold this space here,
Sure.
so we teach some points to people. For those of you who are interested, get hold of Amy. We'll still be on here, and she'll still be here if you have a question that comes up when we're doing the points. Again, we're missing Bev here. Don't know where she is. She's out in the ozone somewhere, and she took a journey, I guess. So we're going to teach some points now. And if you've downloaded the workbook, justtouch.com/workbook, you can get the few sets of points that we're going to teach here. The first page of that workbook is about the eating disorders. All of this is going to be on our website, the whole interview with Amy here. And this is a little bit that our scribe, Paula Taylor, wrote about eating disorders. And so that's just a little synopsis that you can share with people. Then in our manual here, we always go into What is BioTouch? And we'll just quickly go over that for those of you here who have never done BioTouch, because some people have come here. BioTouch is a light touch healing technique. It uses the index and the middle finger of each hand to lightly touch a series of points. And the wonderful thing about BioTouch is anybody can learn it. Children can learn it, be effective. Elders can learn it. Amy and her husband did it. It's perfect for couples. There are no levels. Everybody's effective the very first time they do it. And that's why we just love doing BioTouch. Also, it's a complement to our healthcare, as Amy was talking about in her program. Here's the medical system, and she tried that. And here's some alternative complementary therapies, integrative therapies. BioTouch is part of a holistic program to take care of any kind of your problem, and especially as we're going to talk about here today, eating disorders. As we said, there's no levels. You're going to be effective the very first time you do it. So as Amy even teaches some of her clients how to go home and practice it with their family to, what is it, add to whatever Amy's doing with them. With the EFT, the Reiki, BioTouch is something she can teach them immediately and they can go home and be effective. So it's a great technique for that. And it also requires no special preparation. I mean, you don't have to be in a certain state of mind. You don't have to focus. You don't have to be an all-kind loving person. As we joke all the time, I've certainly proven that because there's not a bigger jerk on the planet than me. And when I tell teenagers that, they really like it. It's like, oh my God, an adult jerk. So, it's just wonderful. You can be everything. You don't have to put away the ego because it doesn't matter. It's not about being an all kind loving person or an egomaniac. If you're a human being, you can do BioTouch. Just that simple. It's just that simple. So that's what BioTouch is. Again, you can go to justtouch.com and get a lot more information about it and download these manuals, other manuals. There's testimonials. There's a way to get the entire ebook version of the BioTouch training, and we have other kinds of trainings besides these workshops. So let's go into doing BioTouch, and especially we're going to go over 3 or 4 sets of points on how to work with eating disorders. The first thing you do is you wash your hands, and it doesn't even require a lot of soap and water. Just wash your hands, get them clean, go up to another human being, and you're going to use the 2 fingers, and we touch right on the skin. So people will move their shirt or blouse, or you can actually go up under a button, under a shirt, and you're going to touch lightly for 6 to 8 seconds. And lightly, we mean like a butterfly. Okay? And you can practice this anywhere. You don't need a special space. You don't need a special table. You can do it in front of the TV set. You can do it at the supermarket. You can even do it in the bars. We've had people, we had one lady, she worked in a bar and she would work on people all the time. So a space is not necessary to create for yourself. If you have one, that's great. If you don't, just do it in an emergency situation. So how do we apply BioTouch? And let me check here to make sure there's no questions. We had a thank you, Amy. What's the first set of points that we do? So the first set that we always do, here's a set of terms that we have. We're not going to go over those. The one thing that we do find to be important is what we call the associate. We don't call ourselves practitioners per se. And the reason we like associate is because it's one often in company with another, implying intimacy or equality, one having an interest in common with another. And that's really important because BioTouch is about equality. BioTouch is about an application of that golden rule, love thy neighbor. BioTouch is about recognizing our birthright to be healthy, happy, and loved. It's about letting ourselves be loved. And in that is the power of healing. And we've seen that. I've seen that personally for over 33 years I've been doing this. So the associate is the one doing it. The recipient is the one receiving it. Okay? And the first thing we always do is what we call the greeting. Now, this little workbook and the manual itself always has a little drawing with the points. You can see here points that we are going to lead you through. We have a little video. And then we always have on the next page a description of where the points are. And those descriptions are also what the video is going to tell you, where the points are. So even if you're listening to this on a podcast, you'll be able to find the points. So while we watch the video, see if you can find these points on yourself. And so let me come over to here, and we're going to show you how to do the greeting.
The greeting is always performed at the beginning of each session. It's the only set that uses one hand and the only set that indicates which hand to use. The greeting is performed with the dominant hand. If you are right-handed, use your right hand. If you are left-handed, use your left hand. The greeting is made by touching at point 1, which is in the fleshy area just below the bottom of the breastbone or sternum. Hold this point for 6 to 8 seconds. Then, with the same 2 fingers, touch point 2 on the back. To find point 2, look for the big bone at the base of the neck. From here, move 1 to 1.5 inches to the left. This is point 2. Hold this point for 6 to 8 seconds.
So, as you can see, that's the greeting. Real simple. We always do that before we do anything else. If you can do nothing else, just do the greeting. 6 to 8 seconds just below the breastbone, 6 to 8 seconds just to the left of that big bone. That's the greeting. Always do that. So then we go on to one of the first sets, as Amy was talking about, just the stress of the whole situation. And these are very simple points. What you're going to have now is every time you see a little X, that's always going to be a point that stays stationary. And when you have numbers, that means the other hand is going to go between those points. And so on this one, on the stress set, you just have one hold point and 2 touch points. So let's show that.
The stress set may be used to address any manifestation of physical, emotional, or mental stress, as well as anxiety and shingles. Hold at X, which is in the fleshy area just below the bottom of the breastbone. It is the same as greeting point 1. Then with the other hand touch points 1 and 2, which are the same points as in the heart set. These points are found by imagining a line running from the notch at the top of the breastbone to a place on the left breast where the nipple would be on a youth. Divide this imaginary line into thirds. Point 1 is at the top of the first third. Point 2 is at the top of the second third. These points may be touched repeatedly, and remember to touch each point for at least 6 to 8 seconds.
There you go. That doesn't get much simpler than that. And that's the stress set. So again, there's the drawing of it. And on the second page is a description just as the same words that are used in the video. The other set that we do is the headset. This also works with stress, the anxiety, the brain connections. In these eating disorders, as Amy was telling you, it's here and there, and you're dealing with all kinds of past trauma and all kinds of brain connections, brain-body connections. And so the headset specifically works with with the brain itself and the brain-body connection. So as you're going to see here, we have numerous points that we touch in what we call a crossfire. You're going to hold your X here on one side of the body while you do these numbered points on the opposite side. So if you just listen, find these points on yourself, I think you'll find it very beneficial to do the headset, even if for a maintenance program.
The headset can be used to address conditions related to the brain. There are 4 steps in this set. In step 1, use through fire to touch points A and A. Point A on the back of the head is in the center of the neck at the base of the skull. Point A on the front of the head is at the center of the forehead where the forehead begins to curve to the crown. Step 2 is performed in crossfire with the fingers of each hand touching on opposite sides of the head. Hold at X, which is in the indentation beside the neck muscle at the base of the skull. It is the same as point 1 of the back set. On the opposite side of the head, touch points 1 through 5. Points 1, 2, and 3 are on the ridge line formed where the skull curves up toward the crown. Point 1 is above the outside corner of the eye on the ridge. Point 2 is above the front of the ear on the ridge. Point 3 is above the back of the ear on the ridge. To locate point 4, move down the head toward the base of the skull to a horizontal indentation approximately 1/3 of the way down from the top of the ear and 1 to 1.5 inches behind the back edge of the ear. Point 5 is opposite hold point X at the base of the skull. Point 5 now becomes the new hold point as points 1 through 5 are touched on the opposite side of the head. In crossfire, touch point 1 above the outside corner of the eye on the ridge, point 2 above the front of the ear on the ridge, point 3 is above the back of the ear on the ridge, point 4 is a horizontal indentation approximately 1/3 of the way down from the top of the ear and 1 to 1.5 inches behind the back edge of the ear, and point 5 is opposite hold point X at the base of the skull. Step 3 is performed in matching fire, touching points 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5. Finally, in step 4, place the open palms of both hands on the head covering points 1 through 3. Be careful, don't let your hands touch each other.
A very awesome technique. The headset just, if that's all you do is the greeting in the headset, I'll tell you, that's can really just bring you down a few notches, dealing with eating disorders, the stress of it all. And it's easy for spouses, kids can do it with the parents or the grandparents. It's amazing what you can do with that. Again, there's the words to that. The next one we want to do is the metabolism, because this is a key of helping the body assimilate what it needs and get rid of what it doesn't need. So even in Amy's journey, having something like the metabolism, as she's making changes in her life and she's giving up the medications while she's moving into a more holistic eating situation, doing herbal kinds of medicines, this really helps. It helps the body assimilate those things. It helps the body get rid of those things it doesn't need. So this is a great. We had a woman too who was quite overweight when she first came to us, and interesting thing about that was she was a chocoholic. She would come in and she would sweat on her way home, worrying if she had any chocolate at home. And after quite a few months of getting BioTouch, she had no more. She didn't even think of chocolate, and she really never changed her mental. She didn't have to have a. It wasn't a struggle to change her diet. It just sort of happened, and then the pounds started to fall off. So it's quite a good set of points to do. So let's show you how to do that.
The metabolism set can be used to help the body assimilate what it needs and eliminate what it doesn't need. The metabolism set has 2 steps. Step 1 involves touching points in matching fire along the large muscles on the front of the neck. Points 1 and 1 are located above the collarbone in the soft indentations on both sides of the notch at the top of the breastbone. Points 2 and 2 are halfway up the neck on the front of the large muscles. Points 3 and 3 are at the top of the neck on the front of the large muscles. The second step involves holding a point on the front of the body and touching points next to the spine on the back. Hold point X on the front of the body is on a line directly between where the nipples would be on a youth and is 1 to 2 inches to the left of the breastbone. Another way to find X is 1/3 of the way up the breastbone from greeting point 1 and 1 to 2 inches to the left of the breastbone. The points on the back are located next to the spine, forming a rectangle around the breakover point. The breakover point is where the bottom of the rib cage joins the spine and can be found by imagining a line directly through the body from greeting point 1. To perform step 2, find hold point X on the front of the body and touch points 1 through 4 on the back. Point 1 is approximately 1 to 2 inches up from the breakover point on the left spine muscle. Point 2 is directly across from point 1 on the right spine muscle. Point 3 is 2 to 3 inches below the breakover point on the right spine muscle. Point 4 is used to address blood sugar problems and is added to the other metabolism points when needed. It is located across from point 3 on the left spine muscle.
You couldn't even hear all that because I didn't have it. So we're going to do the upper abdomen set. We did the metabolism set, which had the blood sugar points. So here is the metabolism set that we're going to do.
The metabolism set can be used to help the body assimilate what it needs and eliminate what it doesn't need. The metabolism set has 2 steps. Step 1 involves touching points in matching fire along the large muscles on the front of the neck. Points 1 and 1 are located above the collarbone in the soft indentations on both sides of the notch at the top of the breastbone. Points 2 and 2 are halfway up the neck on the front.
So we did the metabolism. We wanted to do the upper abdomen.
The upper abdomen set may be used to address conditions related to the organs that are located between the bottom of the breastbone and the navel. These organs may include the stomach, liver, spleen, kidneys, intestines, or gallbladder. Generally, the procedure is performed while the recipient is lying on their back. The upper abdomen has 4 steps. Step 1. With one hand, hold at X, which is in the fleshy area just below the bottom of the breastbone. This is the same as greeting point 1. With the other hand, touch points 1 through 5. Point 1 is in the soft tissue just inside the ribs where the ribs begin to curve outward. Point 2 is the same point
So there you go, folks. That's the points that you do for eating disorders. And again, we want to thank Amy Glogg for her story. Give us your website again, Amy.
It is www.lightofyourlifewellness.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram under that as well. You can also just Google my name. All my pages have that on it.
You can Google her name. You can Google her. She's also, we're just getting her really ready to get certified, so she'll be volunteering here at the center. We're excited about that one. So if you have any questions for us, you can contact us too. We can get a question to Amy, and you can hook up with her to see how she can help you also. And thank you all for showing up. Thank you, Amy. That was awesome. You are awesome. And we'll see everybody next month. Let's see, next month, what are we talking about? GERD and hiatal hernias. So until next week, thank you all, and thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Have a great day.